The crystal chandeliers cast prismatic shadows across the marble floor, each light point a tiny sun that burned my retinas. I adjusted my simple black dress, the only formal thing I owned, feeling the polyester scratch against my skin while silk and cashmere glided around me on the bodies of Vancouver's elite. The champagne tasted too sweet on my tongue, a cloying mask for the bitter undertones. I wasn't meant to be drinking. I was meant to be watching. My eyes found her instantly, a small figure in midnight blue tulle, her dark curls bouncing as she twirled away from the string quartet. Mia. My charge. My responsibility. My heart compressed watching her spin, dangerously close to a waiter carrying a tray of scarlet-filled flutes. Mia. I called, my voice lost in the symphony of clinking glasses and performative laughter. The air felt thick with expensive perfume and the metallic scent of money. I moved through the crowd, feeling the subtle shift as people unconsciously made way, not out of respect for me, but from the ingrained knowledge that the nanny must have access to the child. My heels clicked against the marble, each step echoing my imposter syndrome. 5 months at Vance Tower hadn't diminished the feeling that I was perpetually one mistake from dismissal. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as I approached the east wing of the ballroom. The executives from Vance Biotech clustered there, their faces masks of practiced neutrality. At their center stood Adrian Vance himself, tall, impossibly still, his pallor striking against his black tuxedo. My pulse quickened involuntarily. The man signed my paychecks, yet I'd spoken to him perhaps a dozen times. His eyes, those strange amber eyes, scanned the room methodically until they locked with mine. I felt the familiar jolt of unease. There was always something predatory in his gaze, something ancient that belied his 30-something appearance. He inclined his head fractionally toward Mia, a silent command. I nodded back, my body responding before my mind could process the exchange. As I reached for Mia's small hand, I noticed Adrian's fingers trembling around his untouched champagne flute. A bead of sweat traced his temple despite the chill. Something was wrong. Miss Clara, Mia's voice pulled me back, her small fingers wrapping around mine. Daddy's going to make his speech soon. Can we go closer? I hesitated, my thumb absently stroking the back of her hand. Adrian was now in deep conversation with Silas, his head of security. The older man's posture had stiffened, his hand hovering near his jacket where I knew he kept his sidearm. "Let's stay here for now, sweetheart," I murmured, crouching to her level. "Your father seems busy with work things." The air shifted again, a current of tension rippling through the crowd. I glanced up to see Adrian moving toward the stage, his gait too measured, too controlled. The tremor in his hands had worsened. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, his voice booming through the speakers. "Please welcome our host and visionary, the CEO of Vance Biotech, Mr. Adrian Vance." The applause felt hollow against my eardrums as I watched Adrian ascend the steps. Something cold and heavy settled in my stomach. Mia squeezed my hand, her small face tilted up toward her father with unguarded adoration. I should have moved us further away. I should have trusted my instincts, but I remained frozen, watching as Adrian approached the microphone, the spotlight catching the unnatural sheen of perspiration on his forehead. "Thank you for joining us tonight," he began, his voice strained beneath its customary authority. "Vance Biotech stands at the precipice of—" He stopped abruptly, knuckles whitening around the podium edge. The silence stretched awkward, and then alarming. I felt Mia stiffen beside me. "The precipice of a new era in cellular regeneration," Adrian continued, each word seemingly dragged from his throat. "Our latest breakthrough." Another pause. Longer. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. I watched his face contort, a flash of something inhuman crossing his features before he mastered it. "Daddy?" Mia whispered, and the sound carried in the sudden silence. Adrian's head snapped toward us, and what I saw in his eyes made my blood freeze. Hunger, raw and ancient. His pupils had expanded, swallowing the amber irises entirely. A low sound rumbled from his chest, audible even from our distance. "Get her out." Silas appeared at my elbow, his voice a harsh whisper. "Now, Miss Reed." But before I could move, Adrian's composure shattered. A guttural snarl tore from his throat as he doubled over, the microphone capturing the inhuman sound and broadcasting it through the ballroom. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Security personnel materialized, moving toward the stage with practiced efficiency. "What's happening to Daddy?" Mia's voice trembled, her small body pressing against my leg. I couldn't answer. I watched in horror as Adrian straightened, his movements jerky and wrong. His fingers had elongated somehow, the nails extending into points that scraped against the podium wood. When he smiled, his teeth seemed too numerous, too sharp. "The future of Vance Biotech," he continued, voice dropping to a register that raised the hair on my arms, "requires sacrifice." The crowd's murmuring crescendoed as Adrian stepped away from the podium, his gaze sweeping the room with predatory focus. Then his eyes locked on someone, near the front. A man in a grey suit who stood slightly apart from the others. The rival, the one whose name was never spoken in Vance Tower, but whose company had been trying to acquire Adrian's research for years. "Marcus," Adrian growled, the name distorted through his changed mouth. "So glad you could join us for dinner." The security team moved in, but Adrian was faster, impossibly fast. He leapt from the stage in a single bound, landing with feline grace mere feet from his target. The crowd scattered, screams erupting as champagne flutes shattered against marble. "Clara!" Mia cried, her voice piercing through the chaos. I snapped into action, scooping her into my arms and turning her face against my shoulder. "Don't look, baby. Don't look." But I couldn't look away. I watched as Adrian stalked toward Marcus, who stood frozen in shock. Security formed a barrier between them, Silas at the center, his voice steady as he addressed his employer. "Sir, control. Remember the protocol." Adrian paused, his chest heaving. For a moment, recognition flickered in his eyes. Then Marcus spoke, his voice carrying despite the pandemonium. "The board will hear about this, Vance. Your condition is clearly deteriorating. How long before they realize what you really are?" Something snapped in Adrian's posture. He lunged forward, security barely containing him. I clutched Mia tighter as a scream built in my throat. This wasn't the controlled, distant CEO I'd glimpsed in hallways. This was something else entirely. "Get Mia out the service entrance," Silas commanded, suddenly beside me again. "Take her to the safe room. Code is her birthday." I nodded, already moving backward, my heart hammering against my ribs. The weight of Mia in my arms anchored me as I navigated through panicking guests toward the kitchen access door. "Is Daddy sick?" Mia's voice was small against my neck, her tears warm on my skin. "He'll be okay," I lied, pushing through the swinging door into the relative quiet of the service corridor. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, harsh after the ballroom's golden glow. My heels skidded on the polished concrete as I hurried toward the service elevator. A crash echoed from the ballroom, followed by more screams. Mia flinched in my arms, her small body trembling. "I'm scared, Clara," she whispered. "I know, sweetheart." I punched the elevator call button repeatedly, willing it to arrive faster. "But I've got you. I won't let anything happen to you." The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime that felt obscenely normal amid the chaos. I stepped inside, hitting the button for the penthouse level. As the doors began to close, a final inhuman roar reached us from the ballroom. Mia buried her face deeper into my shoulder. "Sing the lullaby," she pleaded, her voice muffled against my dress. "The one about the moon." My throat felt tight, but I forced the melody out, my voice steadier than I felt as the elevator ascended. "The moon is high, the night is deep, the stars keep watch while you sleep." Mia's breathing gradually slowed against my neck. The elevator continued its smooth ascent, floor numbers ticking upward. 36. 37. 38. "What's happening to Daddy?" she asked again, pulling back to search my face with eyes too knowing for her 5 years. I swallowed hard. "I don't know exactly, but Silas will help him." The half-truth tasted bitter. In 5 months I'd seen enough to know something was wrong with Adrian Vance. The way he never ate at family meals. The strange medical equipment delivered weekly to his private wing. The strict protocols about his condition that no one explained but everyone followed. The elevator reached the penthouse with a soft ping. I stepped out into the familiar hallway, my legs shaky beneath Mia's weight. The penthouse was eerily silent, the usual staff absent, likely all at the gala. I moved quickly toward Adrian's study, where I knew the safe room was hidden. My fingers trembled as I punched Mia's birthday into the keypad concealed behind a bookshelf. 0612. The wall slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a steel door beyond. Another code, the same, and we were inside. The safe room was clinically white, stocked with supplies and a small bed. I set Mia down gently on the edge of the mattress, crouching to remove her patent leather shoes. "Will you stay with me?" Her fingers clutched at my dress. "Of course. I'm not going anywhere." I smoothed her curls back from her forehead, noticing for the first time the tiny flecks of gold in her brown eyes, just like her father's. A soft ping from the control panel indicated an incoming message. I crossed to the screen, tapping it to reveal Silas's grim face. "Vance has been secured. The situation is contained." Relief flooded me. Is he all right?" Silas's expression tightened. "He's stabilizing, but there's been a development. Mr. Vance has instructed me to terminate your employment, effective immediately." The words hit like a physical blow. "What? Why?" "For your safety, Miss Reed, and for Mia's. You've seen too much tonight." I glanced back at Mia, who had curled into a ball on the bed, her eyes heavy with exhaustion and fear. "I can't leave her, not like this. You must. A car will take you home. Your belongings will be sent tomorrow. Your severance package will be substantial." My throat constricted. "Let me say goodbye." Silas hesitated, then nodded. "You have 5 minutes. Then security will escort you out." The screen went dark. I turned back to Mia, my heart splintering. How could I explain this to a 5-year-old who had just witnessed her father transform into something monstrous? I sat beside her on the bed, gathering her small form into my arms. "Mia, sweetheart, I have to go away for a little while." Her head shot up, panic flaring in her eyes. "No, you can't leave. Daddy's sick, and I'm scared." "I know, baby. I know." I pressed my lips to her forehead, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo. "But your daddy thinks it's best if I go home tonight." "He's wrong." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "He doesn't know. You're the only one who makes the nightmares go away." I felt my own eyes burning. 5 months wasn't long, but somehow this child had wrapped herself around my heart. "I'll talk to your father when he's feeling better. Maybe I can come back." Another lie. The look in Adrian's eyes tonight told me everything I needed to know. Whatever secret he was hiding, I'd glimpsed too much of it. I was a liability now. The safe room door slid open. 2 security guards stood waiting, their expressions impassive. "Miss Reed." It's time. Mia's arms tightened around my neck. No, Clara, don't go. Please. It took every ounce of strength to pry her small fingers loose. Be brave for me, okay? Remember our secret handshake? Through her tears, she extended her pinky. I linked mine with hers, then touched my thumb to hers. Heart to heart. I whispered our usual words. Promise you'll come back, she demanded, her voice breaking. I couldn't promise. Not when armed men were waiting to escort me from the building. Not when her father had just fired me after transforming into something inhuman before my eyes. I love you, Mia Vance, I said instead, pressing one last kiss to her forehead before standing. The guards flanked me as I walked out, Mia's sobs following me down the hallway. My own tears finally spilled as the elevator doors closed, cutting off the sound of her cries. The ride down was silent. The exit through the service entrance was quick. The car that waited was black and anonymous. I gave my address mechanically, then sat in numb silence as the driver navigated through Vancouver's rainy streets. 3 hours later, I sat on my small apartment balcony, still in my gala dress, staring at the distant lights of Vance Tower. The rain had soaked through my clothes, but I barely felt it. My phone had pinged once, a notification of a deposit so large I thought it was an error. Hush money. A knock at my door startled me from my daze. I wasn't expecting anyone at 2 a.m. Cautiously I approached, peering through the peephole. Silas stood in the hallway, his usual immaculate appearance disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. I opened the door a crack, keeping the chain on. "What do you want, Miss Reed?" His voice was ragged. "Mr. Vance has stopped breathing. You are the only one who can restart his heart." My heart stuttered in my chest. "What do you mean he's stopped breathing?" I caught myself before saying a vampire. The words sounded insane even in my head. Silas's expression hardened. "We both know what he is, Miss Reed. And we both know what you saw tonight." He glanced down the empty hallway. "May I come in? This isn't a conversation for doorways." I hesitated, then unlatched the chain. Silas stepped inside, bringing with him the scent of expensive cologne now mixed with sweat and something metallic blood. "Mr. Vance is in the final stages of degeneration." He spoke clinically, but his fingers trembled as he straightened his cuffs, a nervous habit I'd never seen from him before. It happens to all of them eventually. The older ones fight it longer. "How old is he?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. 243. Silas answered without hesitation. Young by their standards. I sank onto my couch, my wet dress clinging uncomfortably to my skin. And what exactly am I supposed to do about it? I'm not a doctor. I'm not even a nurse. I'm just a nanny who somehow calms him. Silas cut me off. We've monitored his vitals. When you're near him, his degeneration slows. When you touch Mia while he's in the room, his heart rate stabilizes. You're an anchor, Miss Reed. An anchor. I repeated, the word hollow in my mouth. Some humans have this effect on them. It's rare, 1 in millions. He checked his watch. "We don't have time for the full explanation. Will you come? For Mia, if not for him." The mention of her name was a knife to my heart. I could still hear her sobs echoing down that hallway. "He was protecting you." Silas's voice softened slightly. "From himself." I stood, water dripping from my dress onto the cheap carpet. "Let me change first." 10 minutes later, I sat in the back of another anonymous black car, this time in jeans and a sweater, my hair still damp from the rain. The city lights blurred as we sped toward Vance Tower. My mind raced with questions I was afraid to ask, afraid to have answered. The underground parking garage was empty, except for a handful of vehicles, all black, all expensive. Silas led me to a private elevator I'd never used before, pressing his palm against a scanner. "The penthouse is in lockdown," he explained, as the doors closed. "Only authorized personnel can access it now." "Am I authorized personnel?" I asked, a hint of bitterness creeping into my voice. "You are now." He handed me a small metal object that looked like a thumb drive. "This will get you through any door in the building. Don't lose it." The elevator climbed silently, floor numbers flashing by faster than seemed possible. My stomach lurched as we passed the 50th floor, then the 60th. I'd never been above the 35th floor where Mia's rooms were located. When the doors finally opened, I stepped into another world. The penthouse was a fortress of glass and steel, clinical in its modernity. Gone were the warm woods and soft fabrics of Mia's living quarters. Here, everything was sharp edges and cold surfaces. The floor-to-ceiling windows should have offered a spectacular view of the city, but they were currently opaque, giving no hint of the outside world. "This way," Silas directed, leading me through a series of rooms that seemed designed more for function than comfort. We passed what looked like a laboratory, then a room filled with monitors displaying vital signs I couldn't interpret. "Where's Mia?" I asked, noticing the absence of any toys or signs of a child. "With her nanny." At my sharp look, he added, "Her temporary nanny. She's asleep." We stopped before a massive door that looked like it belonged in a bank vault. Silas placed his palm on another scanner, then stepped back. "Your turn," he said, nodding toward the scanner. I hesitated, then pressed my palm against the cool surface. A red light passed over my hand, and the door hissed open. Beyond it was a glass enclosure that took up most of the room. Inside, lying on what looked like a hospital bed, was Adrian Vance. Tubes and wires connected him to machines that beeped and hummed. His skin was ashen, almost translucent, the veins beneath it dark and prominent. His chest didn't move. Standing around the enclosure were 3 people in white lab coats, their faces grim as they monitored the equipment. "He's been like this for 47 minutes. One of them said, as we approached. "We've tried everything in the protocol." Silas nodded, then turned to me. "Go to him." I stared at the glass wall separating us from Adrian. "How do I get in?" "Place your hand on the panel," he instructed, pointing to a small square of glass embedded in the wall. As I did, a section of the glass slid open. I stepped through, and it closed behind me with a soft hiss. The air inside was cooler, sterile-smelling. The beeping of the machines seemed louder, more urgent. I approached the bed slowly. Up close, Adrian looked worse. His lips were blue, his eyes sunken. The hands that had gripped my arms with inhuman strength just hours ago now lay limp at his sides. I noticed with a start that his wrists were bound to the bed with what looked like silver chains. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Touch him," Silas replied through an intercom. "Talk to him." Hesitantly, I reached out and placed my hand on Adrian's. His skin was ice-cold. I flinched but didn't pull away. "Mr. Vance," I said formally, then corrected myself. "Adrian, it's Clara. I'm here." Nothing happened. The machines continued their rhythmic beeping, unchanged. "Try his chest," suggested one of the lab-coated figures through the intercom, directly over his heart. I moved my hand to his chest, feeling the fine fabric of his shirt. He was still wearing his gala clothes, I realized. Beneath my palm, there was nothing. No rise and fall of breath, no heartbeat. "Adrian," I said again, more firmly this time, "you need to wake up. Mia needs you." For a moment, nothing changed. Then, so subtle I almost missed it. A flutter beneath my palm, a single heartbeat. Again urged Silas through the speaker. Keep talking. Mia was crying when I left. I continued, pressing my hand more firmly against his chest. She needs her father. She needs you to be okay. Another heartbeat, stronger this time. Then another. That's it, I encouraged, my voice gaining confidence. Come back. Fight this. His eyelids flickered. The machines began to register changes, increasing heart rate, rising blood pressure. Then suddenly, his eyes snapped open. They were black. Entirely black. No whites visible, and fixed directly on me. A snarl escaped his lips, revealing fangs that hadn't been there before. In one fluid motion, he lunged upward, straining against the chains that bound him. The metal links tightened, and I heard the sizzle of burning flesh. I stumbled backward, my hip hitting a monitoring station. What's happening? Stay calm, Silas instructed through the intercom, though his voice had an edge of urgency. He's disoriented. Keep talking to him. He needs to recognize you. Adrian continued to struggle against his restraints, his face contorted in a mixture of rage and pain. The veins in his neck and forehead stood out starkly against his pale skin. Adrian, I said, forcing my voice to remain steady despite my racing heart. It's Clara, Mia's nanny. You're safe. You're home. His struggles slowed, though his chest heaved with unnecessary breaths. A human habit he maintained even in this state, I realized. His eyes remained fixed on me, but the blackness was receding, revealing the familiar steel gray I knew. Clara. His voice was a rasp, barely recognizable. Yes, I confirmed, cautiously moving closer again. I'm here. I told you to leave. The words came out as a growl, but there was confusion in his eyes now, not just rage. And yet here I am, I replied, attempting a small smile. Silas said you needed help. Adrian's gaze flickered to the glass wall where Silas stood watching. I'll deal with him later. He looked back at me, his expression softening slightly. You shouldn't be here. It's not safe. So I've gathered, I said, glancing pointedly at the chains binding his wrists. But Mia needs you alive, or whatever version of alive you are. A ghost of a smile touched his lips before fading. The degeneration is accelerating. I won't be able to control it much longer. What exactly is degeneration? I asked, seizing the opportunity for answers. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, they were fully human. Our bodies weren't meant to live this long. Eventually the mind starts to fracture. The hunger becomes overwhelming. He looked away. We become monsters in truth, not just in legend. I absorbed this, thinking of the implications. And I somehow help with this. You slow it, he confirmed. I don't know why. It's rare, but not unheard of. Certain humans have a calming effect on our kind. Like a sedative, I asked, not sure if I should be offended. Like an anchor, he corrected, echoing Silas's earlier words. Something that connects us to our humanity. The scientists outside the glass were furiously taking notes, their faces a mixture of fascination and relief. I felt like a specimen under observation. So what now? I asked, looking from Adrian to Silas and back again. Now, Adrian said, his voice stronger, you go back to your life. And I find another solution. Silas's voice came through the intercom. There is no other solution, sir. We've tried everything else. Adrian's jaw tightened. I will not hold her prisoner here. It wouldn't be imprisonment. I interjected, surprising myself. It would be employment. You rehire me as Mia's nanny, with additional duties that include keeping you from turning into a complete monster. Adrian stared at me, his expression unreadable. You have no idea what you're offering. Then explain it to me, I challenged. Because right now, All I know is that Mia was sobbing when I left. You apparently just died, and somehow I'm the solution to both problems." A long moment of silence stretched between us. Finally, Adrian nodded once. "Release me," he commanded, not looking away from me. "Sir, are you sure that's—" one of the scientists began. "Release me," Adrian repeated, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. Silas pressed a button, and the chains around Adrian's wrists unlocked with a soft click. Adrian sat up slowly, rubbing the raw, burned skin where the silver had touched him. The marks were already healing, the angry red fading before my eyes. "Everyone out," he ordered. "I need to speak with Miss Reed alone." The scientists exchanged glances but complied, filing out of the observation area. Silas lingered. "Sir, the protocols can be damned," Adrian finished for him. "Out, Silas." With obvious reluctance, Silas followed the others. When the door closed behind them, Adrian turned his full attention to me. "What I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room," he began, his voice low and intense. "The existence of my kind depends on secrecy." I nodded, my mouth suddenly dry. "I understand." "No, you don't," he said sharply. "But you will." He gestured to a chair beside the bed. "Sit. This will take some time." For the next hour, Adrian Vance told me things that rewrote my understanding of the world. Vampires existed, not as the undead, but as a parallel species that had evolved alongside humans, feeding on them, hiding among them. They aged, but at a fraction of the human rate. They could die, but not easily. Silver burned them. Sunlight weakened them, but wouldn't turn them to ash as legends claimed. And they were organized. A hierarchy that spanned continents, with Adrian near its top, the king of the North American territories. "Vance Biotech isn't just a company," he explained. "It's a cover. Our research is focused on finding alternatives to human blood, ways to slow degeneration, methods to integrate more safely with human society." "And Mia?" I asked, the question that had been burning in my mind since I'd first suspected what he was. "Is she—" "A Dhampir," Adrian supplied. "Half vampire, half human. Her mother was human." A shadow passed over his face. "She died in childbirth. Dhampir pregnancies are complicated." I thought of Mia's unusual strength, her accelerated learning, her occasional too sharp teeth when she smiled too widely. It all made sense now. "If I stay," I said carefully, "what exactly would be expected of me?" Adrian's expression became guarded. "You would continue as Mia's nanny. Your primary responsibility would always be to her." He hesitated. "But you would also need to be available when the degeneration symptoms become severe. Your presence seems to be most effective." "And how often would that be?" "It's unpredictable," he admitted. "More frequent as the condition progresses. Daily, perhaps, at this stage." I considered this, and the risks. "You said it wasn't safe." Adrian's eyes met mine, unflinching. "The hunger is part of degeneration. As it worsens, my control weakens. I could hurt you, Clara. Not intentionally, but the risk is real. Would you bite me?" The question felt absurd leaving my lips, but I needed to know. "I would want to," he answered, honestly. "But no, I wouldn't. The silver restraints would remain a precaution during our sessions." "Sessions? Like therapy? Or like feeding time at a zoo?" "And the pay?" I asked, surprising a short laugh out of him. "Name your price, Miss Reed. Money is the least of my concerns." I named a figure that was triple my previous salary. Adrian didn't even blink. "Done," he said, "with hazard bonuses and a comprehensive healthcare package that includes regular blood work and monitoring." "Blood work?" I repeated. Alarmed. To ensure your health remains optimal, he clarified. Not for consumption. I felt my cheeks heat. Right. Of course. Adrian studied me for a long moment. You're taking this remarkably well. I shrugged, the motion belying the turmoil inside me. I've always been adaptable. And Mia needs me. I paused. When can I see her? She's asleep now, Adrian said, glancing at a clock on the wall. You should rest too. We've prepared quarters for you on this floor. You were that confident I'd agree. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Hopeful, not confident. Silas tends to plan for all contingencies. As if summoned by his name, Silas's voice came through the intercom. Sir, Dr. Winters would like to run some tests now that you're stabilized. Adrian sighed. Send her in. He looked back at me. We'll continue this discussion later. Silas will show you to your rooms. I stood, suddenly aware of how exhausted I was. The adrenaline that had carried me through the night was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. One more question, I said, as I reached the glass door. Why did you fire me tonight? If you knew I had this effect on you, why send me away? Adrian's expression darkened. Because Marcus was watching. And the last thing you want, Miss Reed, is for Marcus to take an interest in you. Marcus. The name was vaguely familiar. The man from the gala, your business partner. My rival, Adrian corrected grimly. And he would use you against me in a heartbeat if he knew what you were. With that ominous statement hanging in the air, I left the glass enclosure. Silas was waiting to escort me to my new quarters, my new prison or my new purpose. I wasn't yet sure which. The room Silas led me to was larger than my entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows that were currently set to opaque, like the rest of the penthouse. The furnishings were minimal but luxurious. A king-sized bed with crisp white linens, a seating area with a plush sofa, a desk with a state-of-the-art computer. Your things will be collected from your apartment later today, Silas informed me, handing me a tablet. In the meantime, anything you need can be ordered through this. Meals, clothing, personal items. I took the tablet, feeling oddly detached from the situation. Is this how it always works? You just absorb people into your world. Silas's expression remained impassive. This is an unusual situation, Miss Reed. Mr. Vance has never found an anchor before. He hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, I believe you made the right decision. For Mia's sake, if nothing else. With that, he left me alone in my gilded cage. I slept fitfully, dreaming of black eyes and silver chains. When I woke, the windows had been set to transparent, revealing a spectacular view of Vancouver spread out below, the morning sun glinting off glass skyscrapers and the distant waters of the harbor. A soft knock at the door roused me fully. I wrapped myself in the plush robe I found in the bathroom and went to answer it. Mia stood in the hallway, her small face solemn, her dark eyes, so like her father's, wide and uncertain. Clara, she whispered, as if afraid I might disappear if she spoke too loudly. Are you back for real? I knelt down, opening my arms. Yes, sweetie, I'm back for real. She launched herself at me with that too strong grip of hers, burying her face in my neck. Daddy said you had to go away because of work stuff, but then he got sick, and Silas went to find you, and now you're here again. I held her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. That's right. I'm going to help your daddy feel better. Mia pulled back, her expression serious beyond her years. He gets sick a lot now, more than before. I know, I said, smoothing back her dark curls, but we're going to help him, you and I. Her smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. Can we have pancakes? The new nanny doesn't make them right. I laughed, the sound strange after the tension of the past 12 hours. Absolutely. Let me get dressed first. As I closed the door to change into the clothes that had mysteriously appeared in the closet, all my size, all my style, I felt a weight lift slightly from my shoulders. Whatever strange new world I had entered, Mia was still Mia, and taking care of her was something I knew how to do. The next 3 days fell into a rhythm that was both familiar and utterly foreign. Mornings with Mia, helping her with her advanced studies, taking her to the indoor garden on the 40th floor that I hadn't known existed. Afternoons spent exploring the parts of the building I was now authorized to access, learning the security protocols, adjusting to the constant awareness that I was being watched. And evenings with Adrian. The first session, as he clinically called it, was awkward. I sat beside his bed in the glass enclosure while he remained chained, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, barely speaking. But his vital signs displayed on monitors I was quickly learning to read, stabilized. The black veins beneath his skin receded slightly. The second evening was marginally better. He asked about Mia's day, listened as I described her progress with Mandarin, her 5th language at only 5 years old. His eyes remained grey, his manner controlled, though I noticed his hands gripping the sheets tightly when I moved too quickly. The third evening he was waiting unchained when I entered the enclosure. My step faltered. "Is that safe?" I asked, eyeing the open restraints on the bed. "We need to test the limits," he replied calmly. "Silas is monitoring. If there's any sign of degeneration, the room will automatically lock down." I nodded, taking my usual seat. "How do you feel?" "Better," he admitted. "The treatments with you are working. The degeneration has slowed." "Good," I said, genuinely relieved. For Mia's sake, I told myself. "Mia mentioned you've been able to spend more time with her." A smile softened his features. "Yes, we had breakfast together this morning." The smile faded. "She misses your pancakes, apparently." I laughed, so she told me, several times. Adrian studied me, his head tilted slightly. "You've adjusted to all this remarkably quickly." I shrugged. As I said, I'm adaptable. Most humans would be traumatized, or at least more curious. Who says I'm not curious? I countered. I have 1,000 questions. I just didn't think you wanted to be interrogated while you were recovering. "Ask," he invited, leaning back in his chair. "I find I'm in a mood to indulge your curiosity tonight." So I asked, about vampires, about Vance Biotech, about the hierarchy he ruled, about Mia's mother, though he was more reticent on that topic, about the mysterious Marcus, who apparently headed a rival faction that advocated for more aggressive exploitation of humans. "He believes we should rule openly," Adrian explained, his expression darkening. "Use humans as we once did, as a resource to be managed rather than a species to coexist with." "And you disagree?" I prompted. "I believe in evolution," Adrian said simply. "Our species has evolved beyond the need for domination. We can find better ways to survive, like the synthetic blood your labs are developing." He looked surprised. "You've been doing your research. I have access to the company database now," I reminded him. "I've been reading during Mia's nap times." Adrian chuckled. "Silas may have overestimated your security clearance." "Probably," I agreed with a small smile. "But it's fascinating work. The molecular structure of vampire blood compared to human blood, the regenerative properties, the potential medical applications for humans. That's the public-facing research," Adrian said. "The applications that will eventually make it to market once we perfect them." "And the private research?" I asked, leaning forward slightly. Adrian's eyes tracked the movement, his pupils dilating almost imperceptibly. "Curing degeneration. Finding a way to extend our lifespans without the accompanying mental deterioration. Not close enough, he said softly. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not for me, but for himself. For what he was becoming. Without thinking, I reached out and placed my hand over his on the armrest of his chair. His skin was cool, but not cold, and I felt the slight jump of surprise at my touch. "We'll figure it out," I said, the words coming naturally. "Your team is brilliant, and you have me now." Adrian looked down at our hands, then back up at my face. Something shifted in his expression, a softening, a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. "Yes," he agreed quietly. "I have you." The moment stretched between us, charged with something I wasn't ready to name. I withdrew my hand, clearing my throat. "It's getting late," I said, glancing at the clock. "Mia has her swimming lesson early tomorrow." Adrian nodded, the moment broken. "Of course. Thank you for tonight, Clara." As I left the enclosure, I felt his eyes on my back, and a shiver that wasn't entirely fear ran down my spine. The fourth day brought a disruption to our new routine. I was in the kitchen making Mia's lunch when Silas appeared, his expression grim. "Mr. Vance requests your presence in the conference room," he said without preamble. "Immediately." "Is something wrong?" I asked, wiping my hands on a towel. "Is he?" "He's fine," Silas assured me. "But we have a situation. I'll stay with Miss Mia." The conference room was on the 65th floor, a space I hadn't visited before. When I entered, Adrian was standing at the head of a long table, surrounded by holographic displays showing security footage. He looked up as I entered, his expression tense. "Clara," he acknowledged. "Thank you for coming quickly." "What's happening?" I asked, taking in the scene. Several security team members were gathered around the table, including some I recognized as vampires by the subtle differences in their movements, their too-perfect stillness when at rest. "Marcus has requested a meeting," Adrian explained, gesturing to one of the displays that showed a sleek black car approaching the building. "Here, tonight. Is that unusual?" "Very," Adrian confirmed. "He avoids my territory whenever possible. For him to come here to my stronghold." He trailed off, his jaw tightening. "He wants something," I guessed. Adrian's eyes met mine. "Yes, and I suspect it has to do with you." My blood ran cold. "Me? How would he even know about me?" "He has spies," Adrian said grimly. "And your effect on me would be noticeable to any vampire with sufficient age and power. The change in my condition over the past few days would not go unnoticed." I swallowed hard. "What does he want with me? To use you, or to remove you as a factor?" Adrian's expression was carefully controlled, but I could see the anger simmering beneath the surface. "Either way, I won't allow it." "So don't meet with him," I suggested. "Send him away." Adrian shook his head. "That would only confirm his suspicions about your importance. No, we need to control this encounter." He turned to Silas. "Prepare the main reception room, full security protocol, and Clara," he turned back to me. "You'll need to be present." "What?" I gasped. "You just said he wants to use me or remove me, and now you want me in the same room with him. It's the last thing he'll expect," Adrian explained. "If I hide you away, it signals your value. If I present you as simply another member of my household staff, it downplays your significance." I stared at him, incredulous. "And if he decides to remove me on the spot?" "He wouldn't dare," Adrian said with absolute certainty. "Not in my territory, not in my home. The consequences would be severe." The way he said severe sent a chill down my spine. For all his civilization, for all his talk of evolution beyond domination, Adrian Vance was still a predator at his core. I was suddenly acutely aware of that fact. "What do I need to do?" I asked. my voice steadier than I felt. Be calm. Speak only if directly addressed. Adrian's eyes held mine. And whatever happens, whatever you see or hear, show no reaction. Can you do that? I thought of Mia, of the life I'd built with her, of the strange new purpose I'd found in this tower of glass and secrets. I nodded. Yes, I said. I can do that. The reception room was on the 70th floor, a space designed to impress and intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, now lit up in the early evening darkness. The furnishings were minimal but exquisitely crafted. The art on the walls, original pieces worth millions. I stood to one side, dressed in the simple black dress Silas had delivered to my room. Adrian sat in a chair that could only be described as throne-like, his posture relaxed but his eyes alert. Around the room, strategically positioned to appear casual but clearly forming a protective perimeter, were members of his security team. The elevator doors opened silently, and Marcus stepped into the room. He was exactly as I remembered from the gala, tall, impeccably dressed, with that same predatory grace that all vampires seem to possess. But now, knowing what to look for, I could see the signs of his inhumanity more clearly, the too perfect symmetry of his features, the unnatural stillness when he paused to survey the room. His eyes found me almost immediately, a flicker of interest crossing his face before he turned his attention to Adrian. "Adrian," he greeted, his voice smooth as silk. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice." "Marcus," Adrian returned coolly. "This is an unexpected pleasure. What brings you to Vancouver?" Marcus moved further into the room, his movements fluid and calculated. "Concern, old friend, rumors of your declining health have reached even my ears." "Greatly exaggerated, as you can see," Adrian replied, gesturing to himself. Indeed, he looked the picture of health tonight, his skin clear of the black veins, his eyes bright and alert. "Indeed," Marcus murmured, his gaze sliding to me again, "and perhaps I now understand why." Adrian's expression remained neutral. "Clara is Mia's nanny, nothing more." Marcus smiled, a predator's smile that never reached his eyes. "Of course." He approached me, stopping just close enough to invade my personal space. "A pleasure to meet you properly, Clara. We were briefly introduced at the gala, I believe." I inclined my head slightly, keeping my expression blank. "Mr. Marcus." "Just Marcus, please," he corrected, his eyes never leaving my face. "Tell me, how long have you been in Adrian's employment?" 3 years, I answered truthfully. "And you care for his daughter?" "The Dampier child." I nodded, fighting the urge to step back from his scrutiny. "Fascinating," Marcus murmured. "And your blood type is—" "That's enough, Marcus," Adrian cut in, his voice carrying a warning edge. "Clara is not here for your interrogation. State your business." Marcus turned back to Adrian, his smile widening. "My business, dear Adrian, is the future of our kind, as it has always been." He moved to the center of the room, addressing Adrian but positioning himself so he could see me in his peripheral vision. "The degeneration crisis grows worse. More of our elders are falling to it each year. Your own symptoms are advancing, despite your recent improvement." "We're making progress in the labs," Adrian countered. "The synthetic blood trials are years from completion," Marcus interrupted. "And even if successful, they're a half measure at best. A way to feed without hunting, but not a cure for what truly ails us. And you have a better solution?" Adrian's tone was skeptical. Marcus spread his hands. "I do. One that has been staring us in the face for centuries." He glanced at me. "Human anchors." The room went utterly still. I felt every vampire eye shift to me momentarily before returning to Marcus. "Anchors are rare," Adrian said carefully. "1 in millions. Not a viable solution for our entire species." They can be bred, Marcus replied, his voice hardening. Selectively, over generations. We've done it before in the old days. Created bloodlines specifically for their anchoring capabilities. I felt sick at the implication, but kept my face neutral as Adrian had instructed. Those days are over, Adrian said firmly. We do not breed humans like cattle anymore. And so we die, Marcus countered. Is that your solution? To fade away with dignity rather than embrace what we are, what we have always been? We evolve, Adrian insisted. We find new ways to survive that don't require subjugation of another species. Marcus laughed, the sound cold and without humor. Evolution. Such a human concept. We are not human, Adrian. We are their predators. It's time we remembered that. The tension in the room was palpable now. I could feel it pressing against my skin, making it hard to breathe. Is that all you came to say? Adrian asked, his voice deceptively calm. To repeat the same argument we've been having for decades. Marcus's expression shifted, becoming more calculating. No, I came to make you an offer. He glanced at me again. A partnership. Your anchor program combined with my breeding initiative. Together we could save our species. I don't have an anchor program, Adrian said flatly. Don't you? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Then what is she? He nodded toward me. Don't bother denying it, Adrian. I can smell her effect on you. Your degeneration has reversed by at least a decade in the past few days. Adrian rose from his chair, his movement so swift it was almost a blur. Clara is under my protection. She is not part of any program, any initiative, any experiment. She is Mia's nanny, and a valued member of my household. Marcus held his ground, though I could see a flash of wariness in his eyes. You've always been a terrible liar, Adrian. I've had her investigated. She's no ordinary human. Her blood work from her last physical shows anomalies, rare proteins, genetic markers we've only seen in anchor-compatible humans. My heart stuttered. They'd accessed my medical records. I felt violated, exposed. You had no right. Adrian's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. I had every right, Marcus countered. As a council elder concerned with our species' survival. He turned to me, his gaze calculating. Did he tell you what an anchor is, Clara? Did he explain why you feel drawn to him? Why your body responds to his presence? Adrian moved with inhuman speed, suddenly standing between Marcus and me. That's enough. She deserves to know what she is, Marcus insisted. What she could mean for all of us. I stepped forward, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm standing right here. Stop talking about me like I'm not in the room. Both vampires turned to me, Adrian with concern, Marcus with cold amusement. Tell me, I demanded. What is an anchor? Adrian's jaw tightened. It's a theory. Nothing more. It's fact, Marcus corrected. Anchors are humans with a specific genetic makeup that can stabilize our degeneration. They're exceedingly rare. 1 in millions. His eyes gleamed. Their proximity alone can reverse our cellular breakdown. Their blood, well, that's exponentially more powerful. The room felt suddenly colder. I wrapped my arms around myself, remembering how Adrian had improved since I arrived. How his hands no longer trembled. You're not just Mia's nanny, Marcus continued. You're Adrian's salvation, and potentially ours. Adrian's hands clenched into fists. I didn't know, not until recently. But you suspected, Marcus pressed. Why else hire her specifically? I hired her because she was qualified. Adrian snapped. Because Mia connected with her. A fortunate coincidence then, Marcus said, clearly not believing it. Regardless, now that we know what she is, we have a responsibility. We have no such thing. Adrian cut him off. Clara is not a resource to be exploited. I felt dizzy with revelations. Was this why I felt so drawn to this household? To Adrian, was it just biology, not choice? Is that why I'm here? I asked Adrian quietly. Is that the real reason you hired me? Pain flashed across his face. No, I swear it. Marcus chuckled. Such nobility. It's wasted, Adrian. He glanced at his watch. I've given you the courtesy of this conversation, but the council has already voted. Clara will be relocated to a research facility where her abilities can benefit all of us, not just you. What did you do? The lights flickered once, twice. Marcus smiled. Security protocols are being overridden as we speak. My team is already in the building. The power cut completely. For one heartbeat, we stood in perfect darkness before red emergency lights bathed the room in a bloody glow. You fool, Adrian whispered. You have no idea what you've done. A distant alarm began to wail. Then another, and another. What's happening? I asked, my pulse racing. The security system, Adrian said, his voice tight. When it's compromised, it triggers lockdown protocols, which we've bypassed, Marcus said confidently. Adrian shook his head, his expression grim. Not all of them. The ones designed to protect Mia can't be overridden. As if summoned by her name, the door burst open and Silas appeared, his normally composed face tense. Sir, we have intruders, at least 12. They've disabled the main grid and communications. Mia, Adrian demanded. Safe in the panic room with 2 guards. But they're heading there now. Adrian's face transformed, something ancient and terrible emerging. His eyes darkened until they were completely black, the veins around them pushing against his skin like dark rivers. Get Clara out, he ordered Silas. No, I said firmly. I'm not leaving Mia. Marcus stepped back, watching Adrian with new wariness. Control yourself, Adrian. This doesn't need to become messy. But Adrian wasn't listening anymore. A low growl built in his chest, vibrating through the air like distant thunder. His fingers elongated, nails sharpening into points. You brought armed men into my home, Adrian said, his voice layered with something inhuman. The temperature in the room plummeted. My breath clouded in front of my face. This isn't personal, Marcus insisted, backing toward the door. It's survival. Adrian moved faster than my eyes could track. One moment he stood beside me. The next he had Marcus pinned against the wall, feet dangling above the floor. It became personal the moment you threatened my family. Silas grabbed my arm. We need to go. Now. The building shook with a distant explosion. The security system wailed louder. They're breaching the east wing, Silas explained, pulling me toward the door. I resisted. We have to get to Mia. That's where I'm taking you, he assured me. But we need to hurry. When Adrian gets like this, he didn't finish the thought. He didn't need to. The air around Adrian crackled with lethal intent. We rushed down the corridor, the emergency lights casting everything in hellish red. Silas moved with practiced efficiency, checking corners before we turned them. What did he mean about anchors? I asked as we ran. Silas didn't slow down. Legend says that when our kind first emerged, nature created a balance, humans who could tether vampires to their humanity. He glanced at me. It was thought they'd died out centuries ago. Another explosion rocked the building, closer this time. The sound of gunfire echoed from somewhere ahead. They're between us and the panic room, Silas muttered, drawing a weapon from his jacket. My heart hammered against my ribs. Mia was in danger. I could feel it, like a physical pain. There's another way, I said suddenly, remembering the house plans I'd studied when I first arrived. The service tunnels. They connect to the panic room's secondary exit. Silas hesitated, then nodded. Show me. We changed direction, descending a narrow staircase to the lower level. The service corridors were tight, designed for maintenance access rather than comfort. The red emergency lights barely penetrated here, leaving us in near darkness. Stay close, Silas whispered. We moved as quickly as we dared through the labyrinthine passages. Above us, the sounds of conflict intensified, shouting, crashes, the unmistakable sound of bodies hitting walls with inhuman force. Finally, we reached a heavy metal door. Silas punched a code into the keypad beside it. Access denied, a computerized voice announced. They've locked us out of the system. Silas growled, trying another code. Access denied. I pushed him aside. Let me try. I entered the code Adrian had given me for emergencies. Mia's birthday followed by my employee ID. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside, the panic room was a stark contrast to the chaos outside, brightly lit, climate-controlled, with monitors showing security feeds from around the property. Most of the screens displayed static now, but a few still worked. Mia sat huddled on a small cot, 2 security guards standing protectively nearby. When she saw me, she launched herself across the room. "Clara!" she cried, wrapping her arms around my legs. The bad men came. I knelt, pulling her close, breathing in her sweet scent. "I know, sweetheart, but you're safe now." One of the guards approached Silas. "Sir, we've lost contact with the main security team. The intruders have control of the east and north wings." Silas checked his weapon. "How many men do we have left?" "Maybe 8, scattered throughout the property." On one of the functioning monitors, I caught a glimpse of Adrian. He moved through a corridor with predatory grace, leaving crumpled forms in his wake. His face was transformed completely now, inhuman in its fury. "Is that Daddy?" Mia whispered, following my gaze. I turned her away from the screen. "Yes, but he's working right now." Silas studied the monitor grimly. "He's fully feral. I haven't seen him lose control like this in decades." "What does that mean?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "It means he won't stop until every threat is eliminated." Silas's expression was grim, and he might not recognize friend from foe in that state. On screen, Adrian tore through another attacker with terrifying efficiency. His movements were fluid yet savage, nothing like the controlled, elegant man I knew. "We need to stay here until it's over," Silas decided. But I couldn't tear my eyes from the monitor. Adrian was fighting like a man possessed, but there was something else, a recklessness to his movements. He wasn't just protecting his territory, he was punishing himself. "He's going to get himself killed," I whispered. Mia clutched my hand tighter. "Daddy's hurting." I looked down at her, struck by the certainty in her voice. Of course she would know. The bond between them transcended normal understanding. "Yes," I agreed softly. "He is." On screen, Adrian had cornered Marcus and 3 of his men in what looked like the main foyer. Marcus was shouting something, his hands raised in surrender, but Adrian showed no sign of hearing him. "He can't stop himself," Silas explained. "The feral state, it's like a bloodlust. It won't end until there's nothing left to fight, or until he was destroyed." The realization hit me with crystal clarity. I stood, gently disengaging from Mia's grip. "I have to go to him." "Absolutely not." Silas blocked my path. "He won't recognize you. He'll tear you apart." "No, he won't," I said, with a certainty I couldn't explain. "Clara," Silas's voice hardened. "I've known Adrian for over a century. I've seen what happens when our kind loses control, and I've seen what happens when he's with me." I countered. "You said it yourself. I'm his anchor." Silas hesitated. On the monitor behind him, Adrian had Marcus by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "Please," I said, "let me try." After a long moment, Silas stepped aside. "I'll take you to him, but at the first sign of danger, I'm pulling you out, whether you like it or not." I nodded, then knelt before Mia. "I need you to stay here with the guards. Can you be brave for me?" Her small face was solemn as she nodded. "You're going to help Daddy?" "Yes." "Good." She touched my cheek. "He needs you." We left through the panic room's main door, Silas leading the way with his weapon drawn. The corridors were eerily quiet now, the fighting seemingly concentrated elsewhere. "Stay behind me," Silas instructed, as we approached the main staircase. We ascended cautiously. The grand foyer came into view, now a battlefield. Furniture lay shattered, artwork destroyed, bodies sprawled across the marble floor, and in the center of it all stood Adrian, holding Marcus aloft, his hand squeezing the other vampire's throat. "You will never threaten my family again," Adrian growled, his voice distorted, barely recognizable. Marcus clawed weakly at Adrian's grip, his feet dangling uselessly. Silas stopped at the edge of the foyer, holding me back with one arm. "This is as far as I go. Are you sure about this?" I nodded, my eyes fixed on Adrian. Despite his monstrous appearance, I could still see him beneath the fury, the man who read bedtime stories to his daughter, who played the piano in the quiet hours of the night, who looked at me sometimes like I was a miracle he couldn't comprehend. "Adrian," I called, stepping forward. His head snapped toward me, eyes black and fathomless. A warning growl rumbled from his chest. "Don't recognize me yet, do you?" I continued, taking another step. "That's okay." Marcus made a choking sound. "Run, you fool." I ignored him, moving steadily closer to Adrian. "Mia is safe. She's waiting for you." Something flickered in those black eyes, a moment of recognition, quickly swallowed by rage. "They tried to take her from us," I acknowledged. "I know, but they failed. We protected her." Adrian's grip on Marcus loosened slightly. The other vampire gasped for unnecessary breath. I was close enough now to feel the cold radiating from Adrian's skin. "Come back to us," I whispered. "Come back to me." His free hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. His grip was painful, but I didn't flinch. "Clara," Silas called in, warning from behind me. "It's okay," I said, not taking my eyes off Adrian. "He won't hurt me." Adrian's grip tightened, then gradually relaxed. Confusion swept across his transformed face. "That's it," I encouraged. "You know me." I slowly raised my other hand and placed it over his heart. The contact seemed to shock him. He released Marcus, who crumpled to the floor, forgotten. "Feel that?" I asked softly. "That's real. I'm real." The blackness in his eyes began to recede, like ink being drawn back into a pen. The veins beneath his skin pulsed once, twice, then faded. His voice was rough, uncertain. "I'm here." The last of the feral transformation melted away. Adrian stood before me, himself again, but exhausted, swaying slightly on his feet. "What have I done?" he whispered, looking around at the destruction. "What you had to," I said firmly. "You protected your family." He stared at me with wonder and grief. "I could have killed you." "No." I shook my head. "You couldn't." Behind us, Marcus struggled to his feet, his neck already healing from Adrian's grip. "Impressive," he rasped. "I've never seen anyone pull a vampire back from the feral edge." His eyes narrowed on me. "You truly are an anchor." Adrian moved protectively in front of me. "It's over, Marcus. Take what's left of your men and go." "The council won't be pleased," Marcus warned. "The council can speak to my lawyers," Adrian replied coldly. After I filed charges for breaking and entering, attempted kidnapping, and corporate espionage. Marcus laughed weakly. You'd take this to human courts. I'll take it wherever I need to. But make no mistake, if you ever come near my family again, there won't be enough left of you to regenerate. The threat hung in the air, undeniable in its sincerity. Marcus straightened his ruined suit jacket. This isn't over, Adrian. Yes, it is. Adrian's voice was calm now, but no less dangerous. Silas, escort our guest out. Make sure he takes his survivors with him. Silas moved forward, weapons still drawn. With pleasure, sir. As they disappeared down the corridor, Adrian turned to me, his expression softening. Mia, safe in the panic room, I assured him. Waiting for us. Relief washed over his face. He reached for me, then hesitated, looking down at his blood-stained hands. I'm sorry you had to see me like that. I took his hands in mine, ignoring the blood. Don't apologize for protecting your daughter. Not just her, he said quietly. When Marcus threatened you, something in me broke. I squeezed his hands. I know. How did you do it? He asked. How did you bring me back? I smiled slightly. I just reminded you of who you are. He studied me with wonder. What Marcus said about anchors, we can talk about that later, I interrupted. Right now there's a little girl who needs to see her father. Adrian nodded, then surprised me by pulling me into his arms. He held me carefully, as if I might shatter. Thank you, he whispered against my hair. I leaned into him, feeling the rightness of it. That's what family does. We anchor each other. 3 months later, the mansion looked almost normal again. The damaged wings had been repaired, the security system upgraded, and a sense of peace had settled over the household. I stood on the terrace, watching Mia chase butterflies in the garden below. Adrian approached, carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. She's getting faster, he observed, handing me a glass. Soon you'll be the one struggling to keep up with her, I teased. He smiled, the expression coming more easily to him these days. I look forward to it. We watched Mia in comfortable silence. So much had changed since that night. Marcus had been censured by the Vampire Council, his authority diminished. Adrian had emerged stronger, his position secured by his willingness to fight for his principles. And I had found my place, not just as Mia's nanny or Adrian's anchor, but as something more essential to them both. The council representatives are arriving tomorrow, Adrian said eventually. I nodded. We'd been expecting this visit. Are you worried? No. He took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. They need to see that anchors aren't just legends or resources to be exploited. They need to understand what we've created here. A family, I said simply. Yes. His eyes met mine, warm with emotion. A new kind of family, for a new kind of future. Below us Mia looked up and waved. We waved back, united in our love for her. Clara, Adrian said softly. You know you can leave any time. Your presence has stabilized my condition. You've fulfilled any obligation you might feel. I turned to face him fully. Is that what you want? For me to leave? No, he answered without hesitation. I want you to stay, but I need you to choose it freely, not because of biology or duty. I stepped closer, placing my hand over his heart. The gesture that had brought him back from the edge. I choose this. I choose you and Mia, and whatever comes next. Relief and joy transformed his face. He leaned down, his lips meeting mine in a kiss that felt like coming home. When we parted, Mia was running toward us, her laughter carrying on the breeze. Adrian lifted her into his arms as she reached us, and she immediately stretched out to include me in their embrace. The setting sun cast everything in golden light, warming our little circle against the coming evening. In that moment, I understood what it truly meant to be an anchor, not just a biological curiosity or a genetic anomaly, but a heart that chooses to hold fast when the storms come. And as Mia's small hand found mine, as Adrian's arm tightened around us both, I felt it, the gentle pulse of connection binding us together, stronger than blood, more enduring than immortality.